The great hall of the palace stretched high above the crowd like a crystal cave. Light danced across the walls in patterns of blue and gold. At the center of it all stood Empress, her tall form glowing with power. She was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Her skin looked like living crystal that changed colors with her moods. Right now, it pulsed with deep purple, the color of royal anger. Her four arms moved with deadly grace as she spoke to the gathered aliens from across the galaxy. Each movement reminded everyone watching that she could break bones with her bare hands. The Empire had conquered 17 star systems. Their ships were the fastest and strongest in known space. Their warriors had never lost a major battle, and Empress was their greatest warrior of all. Behind her stood her personal guards. They were all huge, powerful, with weapons that could cut through metal. Their armor shone like mirrors. They looked like they could fight armies by themselves. Among them stood one small figure who looked completely out of place. Kept his eyes on the ground. His human body seemed tiny next to the alien warriors around him. He wore the same black uniform as the other guards, but it looked wrong on him somehow. Too big, too heavy, like a child playing dress-up. The other guards had whispered about him when he first arrived. "What is that thing doing here?" they said. "Humans are weak. They have no claws, no natural armor, no real strength. Why would the Empress want one of them protecting her?" Had heard the whispers. He always heard them, but he said nothing. He just stood quietly and watched everything around him. His job was simple: protect the Empress. Nothing else mattered. Today was the ceremony of alliance. Representatives from 12 different worlds had come to sign peace treaties with the Empire. It should have been a normal day. Boring speeches, fancy food, and lots of political talk that meant nothing. Notice the first problem at 14:37 local time. One of the servants moved wrong. His steps were too measured, too careful, like a soldier trying to look like a waiter. At 14:42, spotted the second problem. A diplomat from the vegan worlds kept touching his chest, not nervously, like he was checking something hidden under his clothes. At 14:45, saw the third problem. The lighting technician in the upper gallery had been in the same spot for too long. His equipment was pointed at the Empress, not the ceiling. Took one step closer too, then another. The guards looked at him strangely. Humans did not move without permission during ceremonies. At 14:47, everything went wrong. The fake servant pulled a plasma weapon from under his robes. The fake diplomat activated a shield generator on his chest. The fake technician aimed an energy rifle at the Empress from above. The guards reacted like they always did, with massive force and no thinking. They roared battle cries and charged forward, weapons blazing. Plasma bolts flew everywhere. Innocent guests screamed and ran. Moved differently. He grabbed a metal serving tray from a nearby table and threw it like a disc. It hit the servant's weapon hand, sending the plasma gun flying. Before the assassin could recover, rolled under a table and came up behind him. The dining table was long and heavy. Pushed it hard, sliding it across the smooth floor like a battering ram. It crashed into the fake diplomat's legs, shattering his shield generator and sending him tumbling. By now, the other guards were shooting at the sniper in the gallery, but their huge weapons were destroying everything around them. Pieces of crystal ceiling rained down on the guests below. Looked up and saw the real problem. The sniper was not trying to kill the Empress anymore. He was aiming at the support cables that held up the giant crystal chandelier above the crowd. If it fell, it would crush dozens of innocent people. The other guards were too busy shooting to notice. They would never figure it out in time. Ran. He grabbed a ceremonial sword from a wall display and sprinted toward the main pillar that supported the gallery. The sword was heavy and awkward in his hands, but he needed it. With 3 quick strikes, cut through the thick rope that controlled the main curtain system. The heavy fabric dropped like a net, covering the sniper and blocking his shot just as he fired. The energy bolt meant for the chandelier cables hit the curtain instead. The fabric burned, but the chandelier stayed up. Was already moving again. He pulled a fire extinguisher from its mount and ran up the stairs to the gallery 3 steps at a time. The sniper was fighting to get out of the burning curtain. Did not give him the chance. He hit the assassin with the extinguisher, once to stun him, twice to knock him down, 3 times to make sure he stayed down. The whole attack lasted less than 2 minutes. When the smoke cleared, stood quietly in the gallery, the unconscious sniper at his feet. Below, the other guards had captured the remaining assassins, but only after destroying half the great hall and terrifying all the guests. Empress looked up at the small human who had just saved her life and the lives of dozens of others. Her crystalline skin shifted to a color had never seen before, a soft gold mixed with surprise. For the first time since he had arrived, met her eyes directly. "Your Majesty," he said in his quiet voice, "the area is secure." The Empress stared at him for a long moment. She had ruled for 20 years. She had seen thousands of warriors fight with strength and fury, but she had never seen anyone fight with such calm, precise thinking. "What is your name?" she asked. "Your Majesty, Earth Defense Corps, assigned to your personal detail." "You will report to me personally from now on," she said. Her voice carried across the damaged hall, making sure everyone heard. "I want to understand how you see things." Nodded once. "Yes, Your Majesty." He did not know it yet, but his life had just changed forever, and so had hers. The other guards looked at the small human with new eyes. Maybe there was more to him than they had thought. Maybe humans were not as weak as they seemed. Empress walked through the wreckage of her great hall, but her mind was not on the damage. She was thinking about the strange little creature who had moved like water and struck like lightning, who had saved lives instead of just taking them. She found herself very curious about. Very curious indeed. 3 weeks after the assassination attempt, Empress found herself doing something she had never done before. She was looking forward to her daily security briefings. Not because she enjoyed hearing about threats and dangers, but because would be there, standing quietly in the corner, watching everything with those careful human eyes. "I want on my personal detail today," she told Commander L, the head of her guard. L's skin flashed orange with confusion. "Your Majesty, I had planned to assign him to perimeter duties. Surely one of our senior guards would be better for your personal protection." "I prefer," said firmly, "his methods are interesting." The truth was more complicated than that. Saw things differently than her other guards. When the warriors looked at a room, they saw threats to fight. When looked at the same room, he saw patterns, escape routes, and weak points that could be protected. During the morning inspection of the palace gardens, walked 2 steps behind her and 1 to the left. Always the same distance. Never closer, never further. "Tell me," said without turning around, "what do you see when you look at my gardens?" Was quiet for a moment. The Empress had learned that he always thought before speaking. "I see 17 different types of alien plants from 9 different worlds," he said finally. "Someone spent years learning how to make them grow together. The person who designed this place understood that different species could work together if you gave them the right environment." Stopped walking. That was not the answer she had expected. "Most beings see only beauty or weakness," she said. "Beauty because the flowers are pleasant, or weakness because I waste resources on decoration instead of weapons." "I see intelligence," said simply. "Only someone very smart could make this work." The Empress felt her skin shift to a warm amber color. No one had ever called her intelligent before. Powerful, yes. Dangerous, certainly, but not intelligent. That afternoon brought a diplomatic crisis that would have ended badly without. Representatives from the Hive Collective had arrived for trade negotiations. The hive species communicated through chemical signals and body postures that most other races found impossible to understand. The diplomatic team was getting frustrated. The hive delegates kept backing away from the negotiating table and making clicking sounds that could mean anything from agreement to insult. "They are afraid," said quietly to the Empress. "Look at their antenna positions. They think you are preparing to attack." "Why would they think that?" "Your guards are standing in an attack formation. To the hive, that body language means immediate threat. If you move 2 guards to the back wall and have the others turn slightly away from the table, the hive delegates will relax." Studied for a moment. "How do you know this?" "I read about hive behavior patterns before they arrived, just in case." The Empress gave the orders. Within minutes, the hive delegates moved closer to the table and began communicating normally. What should have been a failed negotiation turned into a profitable trade agreement. That evening, walked through her private gardens again, followed at his usual distance. "You studied their behavior patterns," she said. "Why?" "My job is to protect you. That means understanding everyone who might interact with you." "And what do your studies tell you about behavior patterns?" Was quiet for a long time, so long that the Empress thought he might not answer. "Value strength above everything else," he said finally, "but you use your strength differently than the others." "How?" "Most use strength to control. You use it to protect." Felt something strange in her chest, a warm feeling she did not recognize. "Is that what humans do?" she asked. "Protect?" "Some do, some don't. Humans are complicated." "And you, what kind of human are you?" Looked at her directly for the second time since she had known him, the kind that keeps promises. Over the following weeks, their conversations grew longer. Began taking walks in the gardens every evening, always with as her escort. She found herself telling him things she had never shared with anyone. The loneliness of making decisions that affected billions of lives, the weight of knowing that any mistake could start a war, the fear that she was not as strong as everyone believed. Listened without judgment. He never tried to solve her problems or tell her what to do. He just listened and sometimes asked questions that made her think. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to be someone else?" she asked one evening. "Yes," said, "but then I remember that someone else would not be here to protect you." The warm feeling in her chest grew stronger. But not everyone was happy about the Empress's new friendship with the human guard. Lord, head of the most powerful noble house, watched from his private chamber as the Empress walked within the gardens below. "This is becoming a problem," he said to his advisor. "The Empress spends too much time with that creature." "It is just a human," the advisor replied. "What harm can it do? Look at how she moves when she is with it. Relaxed, happy. An Empress should not show such weakness." "What do you suggest we do?" Lord's eyes glowed with dangerous light. "We watch, we wait, and if this human makes her too weak to rule properly, we remind her what strength really means." In the gardens was asking about Earth. "What is your home world like?" "Crowded," said with what might have been humor. "Humans live everywhere on the planet. Cities, forests, deserts, even floating on the oceans. We adapt to whatever environment we find." "Do you miss it?" "Thought about this. I miss the rain. Earth has water that falls from the sky. It makes everything clean and new." "I have never seen rain," said softly. "Maybe someday you will visit Earth." The idea was shocking. An Empress of the Empire visiting a human world. It was unthinkable. But as she said good night to and returned to her chambers, found herself thinking about water falling from the sky. She did not notice Lord's spy cameras recording everything. That night, for the first time in years, the Empress dreamed of something other than war and conquest. She dreamed of standing in the rain with a quiet human who kept his promises. When she woke, her skin was glowing soft gold, the color of contentment. the color of something that might be love. But love was dangerous for an empress, especially love for a creature that her people saw as weak and worthless. Stared out her window at the stars and wondered what she was becoming, and whether it would destroy everything she had worked to build. The first sign of trouble came during the morning briefing 2 months after the assassination attempt. Commander L placed a data pad in front of Empress with obvious reluctance. "Your Majesty, we have received several complaints from the noble houses." Kept her expression neutral, but her skin shifted to a cooler blue. "What kind of complaints?" "They question your recent decisions. The new trade agreements, the reduced military spending, the changes to expansion policies." L paused. "They say you are being influenced by foreign ideas." Stood in his usual position by the wall, but could feel his attention sharpen. "Foreign ideas," she repeated. "Be more specific." "They believe the human is affecting your judgment." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. When was truly angry, her skin went completely white like ice. "The human has a name," she said quietly. "Use it." "Yes, Your Majesty, they believe is making you soft." Had not moved, but something in his stillness had changed, like a weapon waiting to be used. "Leave us," ordered, "all of you except." When the room was empty, she turned to. For the first time, she looked uncertain. "Are they right?" she asked. "Am I becoming soft?" Considered the question seriously. He always did that, treated her doubts with respect instead of automatic denial. "You are changing," he said finally, "but change is not the same as weakness." "What am I changing into?" "Something new, something that your people have never seen before. And if they cannot accept what I am becoming," met her eyes, "then they will try to stop you." That evening did something that broke 1,000 years of tradition. She invited to dine with her in her private chambers. "I should not be here," said, though he accepted the invitation. "I know." Skin glowed with colors that had no names in the language. "But I am tired of pretending that I do not care about you." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. "Your Majesty, when we are alone, call me." Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "What we feel for each other could destroy everything you have built. I know that too. Your people will never accept a human consort." "I know." "Then why are you doing this?" Looked out at the stars through her window. "Because for the first time in my life, I am not afraid of being weak. You taught me that there are different kinds of strength." Stood and walked to where she sat. Carefully, gently, he took one of her 4 hands in both of his. "I love you," he said simply, "but I will not let that love harm you or your people." "And I love you," replied, her skin shifting through a rainbow of impossible colors. "But I fear that admitting it may have already begun the end." She was right. 3 days later, Lord made his move. It began with reports of human ships massing near the outer systems. False reports, as it turned out later, but convincing enough to create panic among the noble houses. "The humans are planning an invasion," announced during an emergency council meeting. "They have sent their agent to weaken our empress from within." "That is ridiculous," said, but some of the other lords were nodding agreement. "Is it?" Activated a holographic display showing surveillance footage of and walking together in the gardens. "Look how she smiles at the creature. Look how she trusts it. This is not the behavior of a strong leader." "Careful," his voice carried a warning that made the air itself seem dangerous. "I speak only from loyalty to the Empire, but perhaps your Majesty's feelings prevent you from seeing the truth." That was when Lord's ally produced his evidence. "We have intercepted communications from the human diplomatic station," he announced. "They speak of their observer reporting back on weaknesses. The human guard is a spy." Turned to look at, who had gone very still. "Is this true?" she asked. looked directly at her. Yes. The word fell like a stone into water, sending ripples of shock through the chamber. You are a spy. Yes. You have been reporting on me to your government. Yes. Felt something break inside her chest. Everything between us, was it all false? Never hesitated. No, my mission was real, but my feelings for you are also real. Lies, spat. This creature plays on our Empress's emotions to gather intelligence. It must be executed immediately. No, said firmly. Your Majesty, surely you see the necessity. I said no. Skin flashed bright red with rage. Then you prove our point. You put the life of an enemy spy above the security of the Empire. You are unfit to rule. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some lords supported, others remained loyal to the Empress, but the damage was done. Within hours, had mobilized his private army and seized control of the palace's outer defenses. He captured 6 human diplomats who had been visiting the capital and issued his demands. The false Empress will publicly execute the spy to prove her loyalty to the Empire, his message declared. If she refuses, the humans will die, and we will remove her from the throne for the good of all. Stood in her war room, surrounded by the few guards who remained loyal to her. Was there too, though now his hands were bound. You could save yourself, she said to him. Tell them that your feelings for me were part of the deception, that you never cared at all. Shook his head. I will not lie about loving you. Even if it costs your life. Especially then. Felt tears form in her eyes. She had not cried since she was a child. Outside, forces controlled most of the capital. Inside, she faced an impossible choice. Save the human she loved and lose everything she had spent her life building, or sacrifice to keep her throne and protect her people from civil war. I need time to think, she announced. As her remaining supporters filed out, spoke quietly. There is something you need to know about humans. What? We are very good at surviving impossible situations. She looked at him, confused by the calm certainty in his voice. What do you mean? Smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Trust me, when the time comes, be ready to run. Run, I am the Empress, I do not run. Tomorrow you might not be an Empress anymore, said gently. But you will still be the person I love, and I promise you this, we will both survive what comes next. Stared at the human who had somehow become the center of her world. He was bound, surrounded by enemies, facing certain death. And he was smiling. For the first time since the crisis began, she felt a flutter of hope. Maybe was not as helpless as he appeared. Maybe humans were not as simple as anyone believed. And maybe the next day would bring surprises that even Lord could not expect. The execution was set for noon in the central plaza. Lord wanted all of the capital to see what happened to those who weakened the empire with foreign influence. Stood on the platform with his hands still bound, looking small and helpless next to the massive guards. The crowd below buzzed with excitement and bloodlust. Empress watched from a balcony high above, her skin a dull gray that showed no emotion. She had agreed to the execution to save the human hostages and prevent civil war, but inside, she felt like something important was dying with. Lord raised his arms for silence. Citizens of the Empire, today we cleanse ourselves of weakness. This human spy has corrupted our Empress with false emotions. His death will remind us all that only strength matters. The crowd roared approval, gestured to the executioner, who raised his energy blade. Any last words, human? Looked up at on her balcony, then he smiled. Yes, he said in a voice that somehow carried across the entire plaza. I have something to tell everyone. He looked directly at Lord. You made 3 mistakes. Laughed. Mistakes? I control the palace, the army, and the capital. What mistakes could I have possibly made? First, said calmly, you assumed I was helpless. He twisted his hand slightly, and the energy restraints fell away like they were made of paper. These bonds were designed to hold prisoners. I am not. The guards moved toward him, but was already speaking again. Second, you assumed I was alone. He touched something behind his ear. Control, this is Observer 7, Initiate Protocol Shepherd. The sky above the plaza filled with light as human ships. Not attack ships, they carried no weapons. But their presence changed everything. Third, continued as stunned silence fell over the crowd, you assumed you understood what humans really are. Lord snarled and pulled out his own weapon. Enough tricks, you die now. But was no longer the quiet, shy guard they had known. His whole body language had changed. His movements became precise, economical, dangerous. Lord, he said in a voice that cut through the air like a blade, tell me, why did you really start this coup? To save the Empire from your corruption. No, you started this coup because your asteroid mining operations in the Theta system are failing, and you need a war to cover the economic losses. Skin flashed surprised orange. How could you possibly know that? Because for the past 6 months, I have been studying every aspect of politics, including your financial records. Turned to address the crowd directly. Lord owes 17 billion credits to off-world banks. His house will collapse within a year unless he can seize imperial resources to cover his debts. Lies, shouted, but other nobles in the crowd were looking at him with new suspicion. Lord, continued, pointing to his chief ally, you supported this coup because promised you control of the outer colonies, but those colonies are worthless. The mineral surveys you have been using are 20 years out of date. The resources are gone. Skin went pale. That cannot be true. Check for yourself. I can provide you with current geological data. Walk to the center of the platform, completely ignoring the guards who seemed frozen by confusion. Every one of you had reasons for supporting this coup, but those reasons were based on false information that fed you. He used your fears and ambitions to manipulate you into destroying your own government. He gestured to the ships overhead. Those are not warships. They are diplomatic vessels carrying economic advisors and trade negotiators. Humanity has been watching your empire for months, deciding whether to offer you partnership or write you off as another failed warrior culture. The crowd was completely silent now. Your coup has been observed by representatives from 43 different star systems. Every action you take here today will be reported to their governments. You are deciding not just the future of your empire, but your place in galactic civilization. Lord raised his weapon again, but his hands were shaking. You, what are you? My name is, and I am a member of Earth's Silent Service. We are diplomats, analysts, and peacekeepers. Our job is to study other civilizations and determine whether they can grow beyond their current limitations. Looked around the plaza, making eye contact with nobles, soldiers, and common citizens alike. For the past 6 months, I have been testing whether the empire could evolve, whether you could learn to value wisdom alongside strength, whether your leaders could grow beyond the need for conquest. He pointed on her balcony. Your empress passed that test. She chose cooperation over domination. She chose to protect rather than destroy. She chose love over fear. Turn back to, you failed. But here is what astonishes me most, continued, his voice growing stronger. Even now, even after everything I have revealed, you could still choose a different path. He gestured to the confused crowd around them. You could admit your mistakes. You could work to rebuild trust. You could help your empire become something greater than it has ever been. Lord stood frozen, his weapon half raised, staring at this human who had somehow taken control of his own coup with nothing but words and information. Or, said quietly, You could try to kill me and prove to 43 watching civilizations that the Empire is exactly as primitive as they suspected. The silence stretched for long seconds. Finally, Lord stepped forward. Lower your weapon. We need to hear more about these economic reports. One by one, the other nobles began to turn away from and toward. You destroyed me, whispered. No, replied gently. Your own choices destroyed you. I just made sure everyone could see them clearly. The crowd began to disperse as the coup collapsed around them. Without support from the other houses, soldiers laid down their weapons. Looked up at the balcony where still stood, her skin now glowing with amazed golden light. Your Majesty, he called up to her, we have much to discuss. As the plaza emptied, one thought ran through everyone's minds, including if one quiet human could dismantle a military coup with nothing but intelligence and preparation, what else were humans capable of? And more importantly, were they allies or the most dangerous beings in the galaxy? Smiled to himself as he walked back toward the palace. Soon, everyone would learn the answer to that question. The real work was just beginning. 3 days after the failed coup, Empress stood in her private chambers staring at a document that would change everything. The Confederation Charter, said from where he sat across from her, a new form of government that combines your people's strength with diplomatic wisdom. You wrote this in one night. I have been working on it for months. Every conversation we had, every problem you shared with me, helped me understand what your people need. Read through the proposal again. It was brilliant and terrifying at the same time. Instead of an empire ruled by force, it outlined a confederation where different worlds could join voluntarily. Military strength would still matter, but it would be used to protect rather than conquer. My nobles will resist this, she said. Some will. Others are already asking questions about the economic data I provided. Lord spent yesterday reviewing mineral surveys. Lady is studying the trade advantages that come with diplomatic relationships instead of conquered territories. And, under house arrest and facing financial investigations, his own family has disowned him. Set down the document and looked at directly. Tell me the truth now, all of it. What is humanity's real plan for my empire? Was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Humanity has been watching galactic politics for over a century. We learned early that we were not the strongest or fastest or most technologically advanced species, so we found a different advantage. Which is, we understand how societies change and grow. We can see the patterns that lead to peace or war, cooperation or conflict. He stood and walked to her window, looking out at the capital city below. Most species follow the same path. They develop technology, build armies, conquer their neighbors, and eventually destroy themselves through endless war. We have watched it happen dozens of times. And you think the empire was heading for that fate? Yes, your military was growing faster than your economy could support. Your nobles were becoming desperate for new territories to exploit. Within 10 years, you would have started a war that you could not win. Felt cold fear run through her, so you sent a spy to manipulate us. We sent an observer to offer you a choice, the same choice we offer every species we encounter. Turn back to face her. Grow beyond your limitations, or be left behind when the galaxy moves toward cooperation. And if we had chosen to be left behind, then humanity would have helped organize a defensive alliance against expansion. Your empire would have found itself isolated and eventually collapsed. The honesty was brutal, but found herself respecting it. But we did not choose that path, she said. No, you chose differently. You chose to change. Because I fell in love with you. Smiled, the same gentle expression that had captured her heart months ago. You chose to change because you were already capable of growth. I just gave you a reason to act on it. Stood and walked over to him, And now, what happens to us? That depends on what you want to happen. She took his hands in hers, marveling again at how small and soft they were compared to hands. Yet these hands had changed the fate of an entire empire. I want you to stay, not as a spy but as my partner. Help me build this new confederation. The other nobles will not accept a human consort. Then they will learn to accept change, or they will find themselves replaced by leaders who can. Studied her face. You are serious about this. I am serious about you, and I am serious about creating something new. She gestured toward the charter. This confederation you have designed, it will work. Only if you make it work. Only if you convince your people that strength and wisdom together are better than strength alone. That evening called a meeting of all the noble houses. The great hall had been repaired since the assassination attempt months ago, but the mood was very different now. Lords and ladies of the empire, she began, I am proposing changes that will transform our civilization. She activated a holographic display showing the Confederation Charter. We will no longer rule through conquest. We will lead through alliance. The response was immediate chaos. Nobles shouted questions and objections. Some called it weakness. Others demanded to know what humanity had promised in return for their surrender. Raised her arms for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. This is not surrender. This is evolution. She gestured to where stood beside her throne. This human has shown us that there are many kinds of strength. Physical power is only one of them. Intelligence, patience, understanding, these are also forms of strength. What guarantee do we have that this confederation will work? Demanded Lord. The same guarantee we had that conquest would work. None. But I would rather risk failure trying to build something greater than guarantee destruction by staying the same. Lady A stepped forward. Your Majesty, I have reviewed the economic projections. If we form partnerships instead of conquering territories, our trade revenues could increase by 400% within 5 years. Other nobles began to murmur among themselves. The numbers were impressive. Moreover, A continued, several species have already contacted me about joining this confederation. They want our protection, and they are willing to pay well for it. The mood in the room began to shift. Understood profit as much as they understood power. What about our military? Asked Commander L. Do we simply abandon our strength? No, replied. We redirect it. Our fleet becomes a peacekeeping force. Our warriors become protectors of the Confederation. We use our strength to build rather than destroy. The debate continued for hours, but gradually consensus emerged. The economic advantages were too obvious to ignore. The alternative, isolation and eventual conflict with a galaxy-wide alliance, was too dangerous to risk. When the vote came, the charter passed by a significant margin. 2 weeks later, the first ships arrived from other worlds seeking to join the Confederation, not as conquered territories, but as voluntary allies. Stood on the palace balcony watching the diplomatic vessels land. Joined him, her skin glowing with satisfied gold. 12 species have requested membership, she reported. 3 more are sending observers. It is a good beginning. And what does humanity think of our beginning? Smiled. Humanity is impressed. This is the fastest transition from empire to confederation that we have ever observed. You have observed others. Several, most take decades to complete the change. You accomplished it in weeks. Leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at her transformed capital. I had good motivation. Love is a powerful force for change. Is that why humanity uses it as a diplomatic tool? Laughed, a sound that still surprised with its warmth. Love cannot be used as a tool. It happens or it does not. And what happened between us? Something real, something that changed both of our lives. That evening, They were married in a ceremony that combined human and traditions. Representatives from dozens of species attended, making it the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. But the real victory was not the ceremony itself. It was what happened afterward, as delegations from around the galaxy approached the new Confederation with proposals for cooperation, trade, and mutual defense. Within a year, the Confederation included 27 member species. Their combined economic and military strength made them the most powerful force in the galaxy. But unlike the old empire, this power was used to maintain peace rather than wage war. Took a new position as humanity's first ambassador to the Confederation. His job was no longer to observe and report, but to help build the relationships that held their alliance together. Now called the first speaker of the Confederation rather than Empress, found that leadership through cooperation was more challenging than rule through force, but it was also more rewarding. "Do you ever miss the simplicity of the old ways?" asked one evening as they walked through the gardens where their relationship had begun. "Sometimes," admitted, "it was easier when I only had to be strong. And now I have to be strong, wise, patient, and diplomatic all at the same time." Squeezed her hand. "You are succeeding admirably." "We are succeeding," she corrected. "None of this would have been possible without you." They stopped beside the fountain at the center of the garden. The water sparkled in the light of 3 moons. "I have a surprise for you," said. "What kind of surprise?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. When he activated it, water began falling from the sky, soft, gentle drops that caught the moonlight like diamonds. "Rain," whispered, holding out her hands to catch the falling water. "You brought me rain. I promised you would see it someday." They stood together in the artificial rain, the proud alien monarch and the quiet human guard, who had changed the galaxy through the simple power of understanding and love. Above them, ships from dozens of worlds moved through the night sky, carrying trade goods and diplomatic messages instead of weapons and conquest. Humanity had found another species capable of growth. The empire had become something greater than its founders ever imagined. And 2 beings from different worlds had discovered that love truly was the strongest force in the universe. The rain continued to fall, washing away the last traces of what had been and preparing the ground for what was yet to come.